And you decided to take on helicopters. You like helicopters too.
I started militarily in helicopters, and and went to Bridgeport, and Sikorsky was, I forget the town right next door in Rhode Island. But anyhow, they called it the smallest airport in the world. And they had the 5 of us that went back from the military. We were all from transition, and went back and got checked out with the factory pilots. And that, again, I think it was April of '43. So we were the oldest helicopter pilots. And I know I'm the oldest because I'm the only one surviving all the way through. But I became interested and followed through. And I have still an active flight instructor. And I like helicopters. I think they're great. We can do so much. And I think my attraction is mostly medevac. And you'll see the big 212 I have in the hangar. That's typical military that's been civilianized. It's an all-weather helicopter with heated blades and windows and everything else in it. And we teach that. And I think helicopter medevac. Now, we've just had too many accidents here in the last few years, and we got a pretty bad name. But the problem is, let the damn pilot decide what the hell he wants to fly in. And don't have him conditioned so, oh, if I don't go out and save this guy, he's going to die. Well, it's better that guy die than kill 3 people on the helicopter. And I think we're getting that across now in the limitations. And it was just strictly flying outside of envelopes. Nothing wrong with the helicopters. Fog has taken its toll and so on. And it'd be nice to be able to have 212s or twin-engine helicopters, but you can't afford them all. But again, it's your maintenance and your crew and everything else, and then everything, and the pilot qualification above all. But know the limitation. But it's a fantastic method. You know, the time of injury until we get them into attendance all the way through makes the difference whether they live or die. And boy, did we ever learn that in Vietnam. So we pick them up at the site of trauma. The quicker we can get them into that hospital and get them attended, or get them on there and start there again. Intensive care transport. They should be better when you deliver them to the hospital than they were when you picked them up. A hell of a lot better. They shouldn't bleed to death. They shouldn't die of pulmonary failure and so on. That's what we've learned to do.
When I was talking to Clay Lacey and I asked him if he had any regrets, he said that the only regret he has is they don't make him faster because he likes to go fast, and he said that they haven't kept on going after they got past the speed.
Well, he's a supersonic guy if he could have it.
But then, like Lyndon Blue says, there's a sweet spot at a certain speed. That's why.
Well, there are 2 different dispositions all the way through. You know, Lyndon Blue's Bill Lear started him with the pusher and so on, and he got Beach into that. But you see, look what the Italians did over there. They've made one fantastic pusher. Really, they have all the advantages. But they were beyond Lyndon Blue. Now, Lyndon knew probably as much as anybody. But that airplane, when they made that over there, that started to fall on its face. And all of a sudden, hell, fuel went down, the cost of fuel and so on. And that airplane barrels along. It's got good flight characteristics, and it's not thirsty. And that's why they're doing so well with that airplane. Now, Lyndon Blue could have done that. He had to really a lead on him. But I don't know, and he probably was pushed by the beach people too. He probably didn't have the time constantly. The Italians, you know, mañana, they take more time. And that's why Piaggio has done so well. And it's probably, and Lyndon Blue may not have failed, because if Bill Lear had lived another year, they'd have had that airplane going. The only problem they had was the gearbox. In other words, it stuck out. They wanted the Coke bottle effect and so on. But they were pretty well along with that. But that died with Bill.
Now they're doing a lot more unmanned aviation.
Unmanned aviation, it still doesn't have a brain. There's a hell of a lot of stuff you can do without a brain through computerization and so on. But I still think that we're going to need, if somebody else has manned aircraft and we don't, we're going to get beat. That's my opinion. You can't do everything with robots. Not at this stage. We just can't. So therefore, man still has the intelligence, has the brain, and I just hope we keep some of these new jets and keep that along. Maybe we won't have as many, but if the other side's got them, we damn well better have them. And I don't think the other side's going to give them up readily. That's my opinion.
So you see a lot of changes in your life.
I've seen a lot.
From the biplanes.
I really have. I've seen in aviation, it's been so tremendous. And some of the simplest things they've done ended up so big, like the Coke bottle effect and so on down in San Diego when they did that. And so many other things. And our engine technology. It gets harder and harder, however, with all the technology to keep improving massively. Airframes right now, unless you go supersonic, and boy, then you need a lot of energy, don't you? And I think it's the energy limitations that we're going to have there. Again, fuel consumption, or how are we going to fuel them? You know, when we get hydrogen for fuel and can transport it and tie it up, you know, hydrogen's kind of interesting. If I was a chemist, boy, that's where I'd be. You know, we have our geothermal wells that we can take and produce electricity, and we can take and produce hydrogen, but we can't transport it. And if we want a car that'll go 300 miles, hell, we have to have a tank about as big as the car, and it has to be cryogenic, doesn't it? So that's out all the way through. We need a transport medium. And let's say in medicine now, going back the other way. In other words, we breathe air in and out of our lungs, and we have molecules of oxygen that go in and CO2 coming out. But let's look at the oxygen. Now we have a molecule of hemoglobin, and it has 4 iron linkages, each one tying up a molecule of oxygen. And that transports under pressure in our lung out to the tissue cells and delivers the oxygen and the protein and so on out there. Now, if we could do that same damn thing with hydrogen, suppose we could take and, like hemoglobin, have linkages that would tie up the molecules of hydrogen and keep it in mass, no refrigeration, just have a pressure differential. And I wish I was a smart chemist, because I think somewhere along the God showed us how in here, why can't that be a reasonable problem? Because if we could transport, and it's got to be done, because that has got to be our future fuel. You know, atomic energy is fantastic. It's great all the way through. And that's a link. But I think ultimate for mankind, it's got to be hydrogen. And it's the transportability. Okay?
When I was a kid, I used to watch the Jetsons.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the people, the idea of everybody having own little.
Yeah.
That never happened yet.
I don't think it will happen. In other words, you've got, first of all, humanity, there's just too many of us with all differentials and so on. We don't watch out for each other. And I think the problem is, you're not going to have an airplane in every burn. And you know, just look at what just happened with Eclipse and so on. Those people, I can't see why. And Graben's a damn sharp guy and so on. But why? You just look at this. Who's going to pay for all of this? And basically, in other words, how many people are going to learn to fly a jet? You can get pilots and so on, but how many can afford to pay for that? It couldn't be, because there wasn't that much charter to begin with. And somebody with a home and making $100,000 a year is not going out and charter a jet. They're not going to do it. They don't have the resources. Okay? It just wasn't there. And that's been repeated after World War. Remember after World War II, or where you weren't, but anyhow, after World War II, everybody was going to have an airplane in the burn. CB, boy, an amphibious airplane, great airplane all the way through. But most of those military pilots, I said, they never want to see another damn airplane. And those that did, a CB wasn't as easy to fly as some of the others, and they didn't have any water experience. You know, great airplane. In other words, they built a P-47, and boy, I tell you, that CB was like a P-47, but it was underpowered. A few things like that. But this was typical. And Piper and others, Piper was a little more conservative, but everybody was going to have Cessna and so on. But it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, Zodell Nutter, I did an interview with her last month, and she was talking about, she worked for Piper.
Yeah.
And they had the idea of pulling a little tiny plane behind your car.
And they did, and they carried it to a great extent. And Goodyear, you know, the rubber airplane they made, expandable airplane, and they got so far, and then they realized that wasn't the market. But they did a lot of research. It wasn't they couldn't do it. The market just wasn't there. And who's going to maintain all of these things? What about currency, all of these? And I think FAA is pretty good, in my own opinion. They keep a lot of people alive. Maybe they go too far politics get into it. But you know, you take the average, in my day at least, the average inspector we had was a pilot to begin with. He was an engineer. And I've always liked our FAA and always got along great with them. They know the airplanes I fly. And the biggest favor they can do for me, if they know there's a problem with an airplane that I fly, tell me about it.
Now they say that right now there's not that many kids learning how to fly, so there's going to be eventually not enough pilots.
They're all going to be trained by the airlines and military. And this is sad, isn't it? We can see that's not, here, look at Japan's a good example. And Germany, look, Germany does, Christ, if somebody does this, it's too loud. You know, over there. Switzerland, boy, they're sweet. They're great. They're creative. But a lot of these places, they make it so hard. Like in Germany, you fly in a glider. In other words, you just don't have it. And I'm afraid they're doing the same thing here. They're pricing us out on airplanes. It's just like now business aviation. If people realize how many people were employed in business aviation, and I mean this is high level, and then all of a sudden they decide, well, business is not supposed to have an airplane. Well, hell, an airplane is part of commerce. It is all the way through. Yeah, maybe the guy takes one to a golf game, for Christ's sake. What about the politicians there taking the airplanes and flying home, Pelosi, and using them as if they were own airplanes? They do it, in other words, but yet they don't want anybody else to do it. And I think this is when they are destroying, in my opinion, first of all, business aviation right now, they've all but destroyed it. They will, look what's happened. And that'll come right down through general aviation. Let's not kid ourselves.